Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for joining us yet again for another week of iSyllabus Live. Alhamdulillah, we'll be all across several platforms this evening, inshallah, YouTube, Instagram and Facebook. Joining us as always is Sheikh Amr Jamil. Sheikh Amr, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Omar? How are you?
Alhamdulillah, well, thanks, Sheikh. Yourself?
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay.
Great to see you. For our viewers who have been joining us over the last couple of weeks, alhamdulillah, we've had some excellent, interesting sessions. And for anybody that's missed, please do catch up on YouTube iSyllabus Demand. You'll be able to click on the links on the YouTube channel and inshallah pick up on any sessions that you may have missed. But as always, we start off with a couple of announcements. The first one is that this is really your last opportunity, inshallah, to get a flavour of iSyllabus, which will be tomorrow evening, inshallah, starting 7 p.m. First session runs from 7 to 8:15, and then from 8:15 until 9 o'clock, I believe, or possibly 9:30. Maybe Sheikh Ahmed can clarify that. But in any event, that will be your last opportunity for anybody that hasn't done the course or doesn't know what it feels like to join a free taster session, inshallah. So that's Tuesday, the 14th of October, 2025, inshallah. And that will be your last opportunity to have the free taster session. And furthermore, the course itself, for anybody that wants to join, can only join up until the close date, which is Monday, the 20th of October, which is next Monday, inshallah. You may have some family, friends that are sitting on the fence and you've experienced iSyllabus, you know what it's like, then earn yourself £40 every time you share iSyllabus with a friend and family. But not only do you get £40, then inshallah this will also get them a discount. So for anybody that's, as I say, done the course, is aware, has attended, then please do share the link, inshallah, with others that you think that may benefit. So today's class, inshallah, today's session rather, the forgotten sunnah of checking in on one another. And subhanAllah, this is a very interesting topic that I'm sure many of you will be able to resonate with, inshallah. And I just want to read the short blurb that we have for today's session, as I think it kind of sums things up well, which states that in today's fast-paced world, many of us have become more isolated from one another, with human interaction decreasing and people becoming so consumed with their own lives that they have forgotten the importance of genuine concern for others. We explore, inshallah, we hope to explore this evening, how this simple yet profound act of caring can help rebuild connections, foster stronger communities, and embody the compassion emphasized in Islam. SubhanAllah, this is really interesting, and I believe that this is something which Sheikh Amr will be able to really shed some light on, as it's something which no doubt he'll experience in his field, and hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on with experiences that I experience or see in my field. Many of you who are watching will be able to resonate with what we're talking about. Feel free to get involved. Where you are watching, the platform you're watching on, there's comments, whether it's YouTube or whether it's Instagram or Facebook. Feel free to drop a question or to drop a comment, inshallah, and join in on the discussion. So today's starting point, Sheikh Amr, will be really to set the scene of not how things are today, but how things used to be. And I'm going to talk about how things used to be when I grew up. And it may even have been even more different when you grew up. But if I can start by then setting a couple of the things that I experienced or seen growing up, and then you can maybe join in. The first thing is, which is I suppose is the very obvious thing, which is that we're living in a far more fast-paced society, whether it's social aspect, whether it's work-life balance, whatever it may be. First thing is that life just seems to be much quicker, right? You seem to be chasing your tail all the time. Now, I don't know whether that's just something you don't really feel much when you're children. I don't know if that's got something to do with the sign of the times that we're in, but certainly life is much more fast-paced. And with that, what seems to be the case is that you don't really seem to have any time other than trying to meet your own tasks or trying to be really surrounded by your own family, because I know, at least when I was growing up, I regularly visited my relatives, and it would probably even just be 2-3 times a week. So even just looking at visiting relatives, that happened far more often, at least in my life, than it did now.
Mhm.
It does now. Um, might have been, or something that we may have seen more frequently then was we were maybe residing part of bigger families. So this concept of seeing one another, being involved in each other's lives, was possibly just easier, I suppose, in one view, given that everybody was more available. And I think this maybe ties in with the next part, which is that when I was growing up, well, let's just start there, right? Because I think the next couple of things maybe fall into different points. What's your experience, Sheikh Amar, growing up then and in comparison to where we are now?
You're going to give my age away now?
You see, and purposely I didn't mention it at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting, like what you're saying about the visiting, and it's actually really interesting that in one generation things have changed so dramatically.
Hmm.
When I was growing up, obviously you didn't have the internet. The internet came along, during my life, and then obviously smartphones and social media and all the rest of it. And I actually still remember I was actually doing a Jummah khutbah last week, and this topic on Friday, sorry, and this topic was on my mind because we were going to do it, and I was kind of thinking about it,
Mhm.
and I was saying, I remember when not that long ago, like Sundays were a quiet day, like Sundays, shops closed early. Some people didn't open. In fact, the few people that did open were probably the Muslims, right? Muslim
Yeah.
shops. But was Sunday was the day of rest. People
Mhm.
worked Monday to Friday, weekend off, and Sunday was a day of rest. People would either go to church, even if people didn't go to church. It was like a family day. They would go and see their family. And I remember like the streets being quiet.
Mm.
Yet in our lifetime, Sunday has become just like any other day. It's just as
Yeah.
busy as any other day. People no longer just working Monday to Friday. Some people are on shifts where they start at 6 in the morning to 2. Other people are working. I mean, I'm thinking of my gym, right? So the people that work there, they either have a shift from 6 to 2 or 2 to 10.
Mm.
Um, and then you got people that work night shifts. I mean, one of the people that I was talking to, organizes Hajj and Umrah, Dr. Kareem in Glasgow. He used to work. I can't remember what job it was, but he used to work night shifts. I was just asking him, like, how did you do it? He goes, well, I'd come home and I'd go to sleep for 4 hours and get up. And
Mm.
so some people are working night shifts, some people working early shifts, some people. So
Mm.
because people are working in different times, some people have a day off on a Monday, some on a Tuesday. Because of that, there's no everyone's schedule's overlapping with the other person. So
Mm.
when you've got a day off, the other person may be working. Whereas back in the day, I think it was very much Sunday. Even the shops, actually, people had shops, they would close at 1. So they
Mm.
had the rest of the day off. So I think that made a big difference. Like Sunday, Sunday was the day you expected visitors.
Mm.
It was on the weekends that you expected visitors. During the week, it was kind of more rare, but that was the day. I think that. I think also the fact that now, if you can't just turn up at somebody's house, if you're driving through, you can't just say, "Yeah, I'll just pop in and see such and such," right? You feel the need now to phone or WhatsApp or make sure they're home and make sure it's an appropriate time.
Yep.
And when we were growing up, like no one cared. Like people just turned up. Like you do. I remember we used to go sometimes. Like our parents would just say, "Right, we're going to see such and such," and it wasn't even relatives. It was like family friends, and it was just like you'd go to their house, you'd do the door, and if nobody answered, they say, "Oh, well, they're not home. We just come back later."
Yeah.
It was no big deal. It's not like we wasted our time and all the rest of it. No one felt the need to call ahead. You and if somebody turned up, you just gave them what you had. You didn't,
Mm.
feel okay. Oh my God, they've turned up now. I need to give them a full blown meal and all the rest of it.
Mm.
It was simply. I think also closer to like the sunnah that you have guests, you just give them the best you've got.
Mm.
So you'd go in and usually your mum would have kept a cake that no one's like touch just in case somebody turns up, and they bring out the nice tea set or whatever just for guests. Those it was like an honouring of the guest. Like
Mm.
only the guests got to drink from that tea set. Only the guests got to eat the nice biscuits. It was really nice. You felt honored as a guest. And I think a lot of those things we've kind of lost over time. And now it's never mind visiting family friends. It's just trying to keep up with your own relatives. It's difficult. But I think it has, like you said, it's got to do with the lifestyle that we have. Like even like Asda 24 hours a day. I remember the days there's no shop that was open 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So if you've got something open 24 hours, that means somebody's working in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And it also means you can go at 3 a.m. and get something. So I think a lot of things it's not in sync with the way we were designed. If you look at the design of the human being, we're designed to go to sleep when it's dark. We're designed to get up when it's daylight. So if you look at traditional societies, if you're in a village, you'd wake up, you'd hear the cock, right? You'd hear that, all that kind of stuff. You'd start hearing the birds chirping. You'd get up for fajr. The day would start. People would have their breakfast, and that's it. They'd go out to work. It'd get hot during the day. They'd have a siesta, and by Maghrib, they'd have to come back by Maghrib time because the day's ending. You'd have your evening meal, you put Isha, and you go to bed. So you were in sync, with creation and the way you've been created. And I think now there's so many things which are artificial. Like this light's artificial. The screen is, this is not natural stuff.
No,
we're not. My feet are on the carpet. They're not on grass or the earth.
Yeah.
I'm not connected to the earth. So I think in so many ways our food is been changed. It's got pesticides. It's got genetically modified. The diet's changed. Everything is kind of changed now, and it's almost become very much against our nature. So a lot of these things I think tying into it, and now this consumption of social media and people getting engrossed in their own lives is becoming very. People are living in their own little world, and people can be in a house now, and it's quite. I mean, I still find this very incredible that you sometimes ask people, "So how's your brother?" He's fine. What's he doing? I don't know. But I'm like, what do you mean? It's your brother? Like, how do you not know what your brother is doing? I don't know. I think he's some sort of mechanic, so I'm not really sure. I'm like, do you guys not talk? Do you not like? I mean, I find it very baffling.
Yeah.
You can have people that live in the same house and still actually have not really much information on what the other person's doing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You talk about turning up to somebody's house. I've got some of my best memories are surprising. We've got a big dubber in Huddersfield. That's where the base is for the family. And forget just driving 5 minutes down the road. We would drive several cars and just turn up at someone's house. I say someone's house, my uncle's house or my aunt's house, and that's a couple of cars full. 2 cars full turning up to one house, and it was done that way because it was genuinely, they were over the moon to see you. There was none of this, oh, right, okay, oh, God, what are we going to do now? They were genuinely over the moon. They were fighting with you, making sure, asking you to stay there. No, nobody's going anywhere else. Get the cumble out, right? Half of us are on the floor. Doesn't matter. We want everyone together. And they would do the same. They would turn up here, and the best thing was you didn't announce it because it was a genuine reaction, right? It was an excitement. They say we didn't want to phone you and tell you because we knew you guys would be over there. It was a surprise. And you can imagine that kind of surprise today, right? It'd go down like a lead balloon, right? So, subhanAllah, this is very, very interesting because most of the generation that will be listening to us will probably reflect and think similar, right? Maybe the younger generation probably might not be able to possibly maybe relate to what we're saying. The other thing, I suppose, was how much of an impact do you think it had that we were living in bigger families in those times? Now, all of a sudden, we are separate, and that comes with many of its benefits as well. There's no denying that, right? There's privacy. There's I'm sure there's many aspects that are positive. But for this concept of checking in and not just living in your own bubble, in your own 4 walls, actually, the not being in a bigger family has possibly had an impact.
I think so. I think one of the things with it was really interesting. I was watching this video. I'm not sure if it's it's one of these I think it's one of these comedians, but he was basically saying, you know, like the whole idea was get away from extended families and all the rest of it, live your own life, right? So he goes, you start living your own life, and now you're on your own, and you miss all the kind of support you had. So he goes, then you have to create your own support mechanisms through your friends or whatever, right? So he goes, it's almost like you have to go back to what you had in the first place. So, you know, so it was really interesting when he said it. I thought, actually, you know, it's that same thing. You get sold something, but then in reality, you go back to thinking, actually, you know, what we had in the first place was actually working. When we end up messing it up. And I think that's part of it. That, you know, as humans, we need interaction. We need human interaction. And it's really interesting because the word insan, right? Insan, one of the roots of insan is uns, which means to be sociable. So it's from our nature, right? We are social beings. You know, you like my son's into animals, right? And he'll tell me like this animal lives on its own, this animal lives in herds, right? But you know, we're generally speaking, we're not loners, right? We generally live in societies, in groups, in families, in villages, in towns, and so on. And so, and one of the proofs of that is COVID. You know, when COVID hit, that social isolation, how many mental issues did it cause? How many family problems did it cause? Because people just like they weren't you know, having that human to human interaction. In our religion, I mean, all of it, if you think of it, the Prophet ﷺ, God could have just given him revelation, but he gives it through a being, which is Jibreel. There's a connection between two beings going on, and then the Prophet is giving it to his companions. They're called the companions. Why are they called the companions? Because they kept his company. Right? So Sahabi is from Suhba, which means to keep the company of. So it's human interaction. How did they learn? By looking at the Prophet, by interacting with the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, they had things like the congregational prayer, so everyone's coming to the masjid, meeting one another. The Prophet ﷺ, in many hadith, is telling them, give salams, you know, give salams to one another. And in fact, in one, he's asked, what's the best thing? What's the best thing in Islam? And the Prophet says, to feed the hungry, and to give salams to you, those who you know and those who you don't know. Right? Those who you know and those who you don't know. And it's really interesting because my uncle, he's a very regular in one of the big mosques in Glasgow, and he was telling me, he goes, I don't know, he goes to Salah all the time, and he goes, he met this Saudi guy in the mosque, and he gave him salams, and the Saudi guy goes, you're the first guy in 3 months that's given me salams. So he goes, I've been coming into the mosque praying, right? But obviously everyone's just mixing with who they know. No one's batted an eyelid, right? This guy's coming in and out praying. He's just coming in, coming out, no one's saying nothing to him. And my uncle he said to me, you're the first person to give me salams in 3 months. And I think that kind of summarizes really a lot of what is happening. This is like you said, you could be praying next to someone, they have no idea what you're doing, who you are, and they don't even talk to you. And it's really sad to say this, right? But you know, I was talking to this young convert, a young convert, and I was telling him about, you know, the project we've got, Embrace, which is a project for new Muslims, and we were just discussing it, and I said to him, how have you found it? You're only Muslim a very short period, and he said one of the things I've noticed that it goes, when I used to go to church, everyone used to talk to me. And he goes, I come in the mosque and no one talks to me. I was like, my God, man, we need to sort ourselves out. What is this? What's going on? Because it's so far from what the sunnah is. Like, how have we got to this point where we're just going in our own little world, praying and leaving? We're not even looking left or right, who's actually around us. Whereas, you know, all the prophetic example is give salams to those who you know, those who you don't know. In another hadith, the Prophet said, you know, afshu salam, like spread peace, spread salam. In fact, yesterday we had a talk with Musa Penfound, who's a convert scholar, and he was actually saying that, and I've not just heard this from him, I've heard it from other people as well, that one of the things that really took them back was the generosity of Muslims. The fact that, people would actually share their food with them, and they're like, "What? Why is the guy trying to share his food for me?" And he was actually mentioning the story himself. He said that, with his Muslim friends at school, he said that, let you go and get halal burger, and he goes, they'd insist on paying. Because that's great. I thought, this is great. I'm getting free food here. And he goes, just let them pay. But he goes, at some point it dawns on you, like, what is this? Like, why are these guys paying when there's no tangible benefit for them, right? They're losing money. Why would you pay? And there's funny videos in it on Instagram now, you can see as well. They'll show like,
people,
whatever, they're all fighting over the bill in it. They're like killing each other the bill, but it's one of those things that he said has a profound effect. The fact that people are inviting you in to shared food. So I think that, if we start losing these sunnahs, which have been kind of inherited, I think is a massive, not only to ourselves, damage to ourselves, but also I think it also is a problem for our da'wah and how we present ourselves to others.
This is such a big topic, and many of the reasons why we chose this discussion of checking in is probably more pivotal now than it ever has been. You see it from not only from the concept of looking after your own community and looking after each other, but as you say, giving off in terms of dawah and what it is that we are, the impression that we're giving of Muslims, not the impression, the reality of what Muslims should be. You've touched upon masjids, and you're absolutely right. We can go into a mosque. You can stand next to somebody in the front line for months and months and months, yet somebody doesn't ever know your name. You don't know their name. You don't know what they're going through. They don't know what you're going through. And yet, as you say, this totally goes against what the sunnah is meant to be, right? The reason why the congregation's there, the reason why Jamaat's so important, the reason why it's so important when we and we be together. The sense of community, if you needed something back in the day when you were growing up, you called someone, right? You called someone you knew. If you needed your house decorated, usually you called around some cousins, some relatives and uncles, and they were roped in, right? If there's probably some houses still now and your relatives that you can say, I've taken part and I've decorated their living room, or I've got a hissa, I've got a share in that house because I helped paint a couple of walls, right? Whatever it may be. Again, we're probably going to be the last generation that ever experienced that, because nowadays the last thing you're going to do is phone up and say to a relative or an uncle, right, can you come round and help decorate? Phone up somebody and, Jim comes round and Jim will paint your house for 50 quid or 100 quid in a room or whatever it may be. So, again, things that we maybe don't think of, but the reality is, in fact, an even better example of that must be weddings, right? Everything's now catered, right? Catering now is all happening, but reality is when we were growing up, that was part of the wedding, right? You knew you were going to have to roll those sleeves up at some point, you didn't, right?
Well, I remember if I sat down, my dad would look at me and say, "What are you doing?" Like, what do you think you're doing here? I'm like, the wedding. And you're like, yeah, get in the kitchen, go in the kitchen.
My first sister's wedding, the cameraman goes into the kitchen, and it's basically our whole probably all the men in our family are in this video. You can see them all in the kitchen, right? The chef's in the middle, he's cooking, and you see from every one of my uncles to my dad to all my uncles, all my cousins, all the younger cousins, anybody that's probably about 15, 16 upwards is there, sleeves rolled up, running about the hall. So anyway, these are great memories that we can think of and reflect on, and they created harmony and they gave opportunity, possibly even allowed us to have the opportunity of checking in, Sheikh. Now you can be at a wedding with your family and someone's just sitting across the hall. You've not seen them for 12 months. So these are small things which I suppose we're moving away from, but no doubt are having an impact on the lack of insight that we have into each other.
Yeah, and then like now, as you probably know, loneliness has become a big problem. I mean, one of the reasons why elderly people get scammed is because when someone calls, they've not spoken to somebody, and they're actually just glad they're talking to somebody, and this is one of the ways. And I remember, I'm sure there was even, I think they even toyed with the idea of like postmen, something along the lines, some sort of scheme where if the postman, felt that the person was on their own or lonely, was able, was allowed to like speak to them for 15 minutes or something like that, because that might be the only time they get interaction. So it's actually quite sad when you start to think about it. And the thing is, and with our kind of newer generation, they become so used to like texting. They'd rather like text than and I know people who will say they'd rather text me through what's there and then speak to me. And the thing is, you have to really think about that, because it has an impact on the human. I mean, I was just dealing with a case the other day, and the sister shared something with me, which I thought was really interesting. So it's a Muslim sister, she's mature, she's a professional. You went through marital breakdown, so obviously went through a difficult period in her life. And she goes, I met this, I was out with my daughter, I met this guy, I don't know, a B&Q, one of these places. She goes, it just reminded me of my dad, looked like my dad. And he must have noticed, that she's feeling down or something. And this shows you the power of empathy, the power of just noticing other people. That he must have noticed that she looks a bit down, and he wanted to like cheer her up a little bit. So anyway, he goes, talked to her, it was quite nice and stuff, and he walked her back to the car and he goes, look, can I give you something? She's like, okay. And he goes, okay, just come over to my car. And she's like, oh, hold on a second. This is what it says. This is getting a bit weird now. Right, hold on. I'm not sure about this anymore. But anyway, he just gave her a pen, right? And he goes, this is for you, right? And he goes, like, I hope you have a good day, and some nice words. And that was it. Just a nice man. So she gets in the car and she goes, look, that was a nice man, wasn't it? And Dora goes, yeah, it was a nice man. She goes, it's only when I got home, right, and I turned the pen around and it said something along the lines of, the world is better for you, having you in it, or something. And she goes, she was moved to like tears, because she goes, how did he know that I was going through this? And now they've actually got, you've probably seen this on Instagram.
Yeah.
They're selling these hoodies, right? That have that message that the world is better with you in it, because people, suicide's a big problem. It's the biggest killer of males. I can't remember which age group. I think it's 30s and 40s or something like that. It's the biggest killer of men is suicide. So people go through difficult periods, and it could be that one moment, that one moment where you've just not so self-absorbed, and actually notice somebody is looking a bit down in the mosque, or on a bench, or just paying attention and actually saying, how you doing, you okay? And even like, if say, like a homeless person and you give 50p, but actually taking the 3 seconds to say, all right, mate, how you doing? How's your day? Or, I hope you have a nice day, or, just that extra little bit makes a huge difference. And you don't know what impact it has on that person. I mean, one of the things with, obviously, with all the far right messaging and anti-hate, anti-Islam, I mean, one of the things of the Prophet ﷺ is that the whole society was against him, but it was through his behavior, through his character, that people kept saying, well, this doesn't add up. Like, they keep saying this guy's a really bad guy, but all we see is good. And and if we were just a bit more, just really going back to the sunnah, like just being Muslims with one another and other people, it has a huge impact.
You reminded me of when 9/11 happened. I remember my uncle, who's now passed away, Baba Saleem, he said, get out, get your faces out there, get out and show yourselves and do. And we basically were kind of essentially started a soup kitchen not long after, or I think just before he passed away. And the whole purpose was, what he was saying was people should see that you've got a big beard, but you're handing them a cup of soup, you're handing them a cup of tea. He said, nobody out there in the city centre when they're sleeping rough on the streets, giving them something. So they're reading all these things in the media and they're reading all this negativity about you. But when you turn up with that cup of soup or that cup of tea, then that's it. You've dispelled this notion that you're a monster. So subhanAllah, I suppose that these things absolutely, apply even till today. So many things you mentioned there. You gave that little example of checking in and how important it is. From my perspective, obviously, I've been working in the criminal law field for over a decade now and work closely with prisoners. One of the things that they use as a risk factor for somebody that's going to be released after a life sentence, right? Let's say 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. One of the metrics that they use is your support network, your family. So do you have family? And it's a massive tick that you get if you are somebody that has any type of support network. So if you've got a friend called John in the community, and John, you can show some letters from John or anybody, right? Mr. X. And this person checks in on you, has an interest in you. That is one of the boxes ticked, and that is a massive factor for you becoming released, because they can say, well, actually, this person's got someone that he interacts with. He'll be able to socialize. He'll keep his mental health in check. He'll raise any warning flags. All these benefits that come with it, right? And if you've got a support network as a family, well, bully, they're over the moon, right? Now, one of my very first experiences, actually, even just 2 years into the job, I remember there was a life prisoner, 17 and a half years he served. And when he came out, after 1 week, he went into the street and he done something stupid and he got himself recalled. He came back into prison. So here's me, I rock up and I go up to him and I say, what on earth, man? We all that, 1 whole year we spent trying to get you out. What happened? And he said, Omar, he goes, I couldn't do it. I said, what do you mean? He said, I was, for a whole week, he goes, I was in a room and I was just looking at 4 walls. And he said, it drove me mad. And he said, in here, at least I'm a number. At least when it comes to lunchtime and breakfast and dinner, someone needs to come and get me and they need to make sure that I'm fed. He goes, at least I can have that conversation. He said, a whole week. He goes, I didn't last. He goes, either kill myself or get myself brought back in. And so, so subhanAllah, this concept of socializing, we don't understand the impact that it has, possibly because, alhamdulillah, all of us, or majority of us, have had the privilege of having a support network, have had the privilege of having someone in your life, not just one person, multiple people. If tomorrow your own immediate parents and your own immediate siblings weren't there, you would have an extended family that would check in on you. And if 2 or 3 families went missing, there would be other people to check in. And if every one of your cousins went, there'd be plenty of people in the community that you know. But believe it or not, there are probably majority of the community that don't have people that check in. So subhanAllah, we're talking today about checking in. And I think what needs to be, or one of the key messages is we understand just how important. Sheikh Amar gave the example there of checking in on the guy when you give him 50 pence, just having that 10-minute, that 10-second, 30-second conversation. That for someone can make their week. So, subhanAllah, I think that's a really, really interesting point. But before I come on to that and continue, inshallah, with our discussion, one of the things that I want to mention is, inshallah, tomorrow night is the last night where you can get a chance to have the free taster session of our iSyllabus course, Tuesday the 14th. And you can come along and click onto the description where you can see the link and get access to the course. The last opportunity to join the course is Monday, the 20th of October, which is next Monday. So tomorrow, if there's anybody sitting on the fence, is your last chance to join the class, get a feel for how it is. So please do take this opportunity. But more so, if you're somebody that knows someone who thinks that, well, actually, they would be really suited for the course, we think they would do pretty well on it, give them a referral and inshallah earn £40 yourselves if they end up taking it up. But also, it's not only £40 for yourself, inshallah, there's a discount for them should they choose to take the opportunity. Ali is commenting on the social media and he says, totally agree. Even in Glasgow, there's no real network in the local Muslim community. We need something like Embrace Islam Scotland for support. I want to just give one more example, Sheikh, and I'll hand it over to you. Again, through my work, I had a young boy who was grew up and he was only 15 years old and he lost his mum at a young age. And he took on the responsibility of his father, who's critically ill, so he became his carer. He's only 15 years old. and his brother's actually someone that has got an addiction problem. So you can imagine at 15, you're trying to support your father who's critically ill. At the same time, you've got a brother. And to the extent that the brother used to hand him all his money and say, you need to look after this, because when his benefits would come in, he'd say, I need you to look after this because I don't trust myself with it. I'm going to go and use it. So anyway, the young boy feels the pressure. In the end, what ends up happening is he resorts to criminal activities to try and make money. All right. He's feeling the punch. He thinks that, right, I can make a quick buck here, and it will support my dad. It will support my brother. It will take me out of some of the misery that I'm in. And obviously, very quickly, subhanAllah, he realizes, he recognizes actually this is not the life that. And alhamdulillah, for a 15-year-old, he manages to take himself out. He pulls himself away, and he starts working. He goes from earning maybe, up to a couple of £1,000 a week doing the stuff that he knows is wrong, to working a job in a takeaway where he's earning maybe £200 a week, £250. And, subhanAllah, I remember I would walk past the window of the shop, and I would see him, with long hours, starting maybe 12 o'clock in the afternoon, finishing at 12 o'clock at night. And he's there just sweating and, really in the heat. And most of the time I'd walk past, he'd just be looking down at the floor in his own world, probably thinking, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to do this? And the one thing that would always hit me is, how would we as a society ever know what that young boy's going through? What's the mechanism that we have anywhere where we could ever know what he's going through, and we could ever say, right, son, you're doing phenomenal. Here's, you're doing absolutely amazing. We're going to maybe give you X, Y, and Z. We're going to try and help you, try and give you some support, etc. So anyway, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me an opportunity to get a glimpse into his life. So maybe that's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us these things, and I was able to do something maybe on a very small scale. But the reality is, unless we're looking out for these things, unless we actually spark up a conversation with these people, we'll never know.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ali's comment about there needs to be more support. I think you're absolutely correct. Alhamdulillah, I mean, with Embrace, it's a new project, but we do have different plans. One of the things we're going to start doing is social events every once a month, and that will be open to not just the new Muslims but also all of the community. And we're also going to start a monthly gathering as well, which is going to be for the community, because of basically what people are saying. And to Celia, I think it's very important what she's mentioning here about the for converts and having a support mechanism, which is one of the reasons actually led to us having Embrace, an organization where on a Monday evening, whatever it is, it's every Monday, there's going to be somebody there, there's people there. So at least if nothing else is happening, at least on a Monday, somebody's there to chat with them, to learn something, to have a cup of tea. And I think that it's just it's a general cultural phenomena that we need to revive. We had it. It's not like we didn't have it. It's just taking the time out to actually give salams to people in the mosque, talk to people, wherever it might be. It doesn't have to be the mosque. Especially when you see a Muslim, just to say salam, how you doing? Assalamu alaikum. At the gym, and I think just striking up conversation, just chatting, just asking people how are they, how are you doing, and actually noticing, look, this person looks under pressure. So look, I can see, you're looking under pressure. Is everything all right? And that's all it takes. I remember, many years ago when I first started the work at Unity, one of the first kind of cases, it was a sister. She was going through some issues, and she called up, and she just, I don't know, I couldn't get a word in. It's one of those, I couldn't get a word in. I was like, just like over my mouth, I couldn't get a word in. And she just, I don't know, she rattled off for about 20 minutes, and then she goes, I feel so much better. And I thought, I haven't done anything. I haven't said anything. I haven't done anything. But it's just the fact that somebody's actually listening to what I've got to say. The amount of people through Unity that I've spoken to, and then obviously they say to me, I've never told anyone this, or I've never spoken to anyone, or I didn't know where to go. And it's quite sad that that's happening. And in the past, when you're living in a village, right? That's what you'd go to the elders and you'd sit down and you'd talk it out, and that's it, and it'd get resolved. That support mechanism is disintegrated because we don't have that same system anymore. But I think that's what we need to try to revive to the best of our ability. Like this question here, for people who don't have a big family, it really is Eids, funerals and birthdays. How do you teach your kids, how to stay connected? I think with painting, it is like leading by example. And one of the things, subhanAllah, if you look at the Prophet, how he brings people together, that when the people migrate from Makkah and go to Medina, one of the first things he did was mu'akha, which is like brotherhood. So he'd get, like me and you, right? Okay, you're from Medina, I'm from Makkah, right? Okay, this is your buddy, right? This is your buddy, right? It's your brother. This is another thing we're looking at as well, the buddy system. But that's it. And your job was to kind of help the other person. So you felt supported. You didn't feel you were on your own. And I think it's just really reviving that culture. That these things we say these lovely hadith, like love for your brother what you love for yourself. God helps the slave as long as the slave is helping his brother. But in reality, when you start to help another Muslim in any way, right, even lifting his spirits, that it actually is a means for bringing blessings into your own life. By actually focusing. See, we think, I need to focus on myself, but actually by focusing on other people and helping other people, what happens is we actually invoke God's mercy, invoke God's blessings upon ourselves, and actually our lives, lots of issues that we had start to actually get solved because of the virtue of the fact that we helped someone else. And we always have to remember that other people have rights over us. It's not just about me. So that hadith about the 6 rights. So every Muslim has 6 rights over another Muslim. Number 1 is to if you give him salams. So if you meet a Muslim, his right upon you is that you give him salams. If they invite you to something, coffee, tea, whatever it may be, you should accept the invitation unless obviously you got something pressing. If they advise you, to advise them when they seek counsel. So to advise somebody when they're asking your advice, come to Omar, I'm in this issue, what do you think? To actually give them advice. And simple things like, to bless them when they sneeze. I sometimes pay attention, when like I sneezed in a call or something, and I sneezed, I said alhamdulillah, and no one said anything. It's not just happened once or twice. This has happened a lot of times to me. Personally, I'm just from my own experience that even this basic concept we're starting to forget, that if somebody sneezes, yahdikumullah, it's just, how long does that take to say? 2 seconds, and you'll be rewarded. And then to visit him when he is sick, and to follow his funeral when he dies, right? And this, I think, this comes on to, one of the things that's kind of being said here, which is visiting. This sunnah of visiting. And I'm, talking, not as if I've got this down to a T, but I'm talking to myself at the same time. This is collectively, we need to start reviving this idea of visiting one another for the sake of God. And this is one of the things that I found really beautiful, that the Prophet ﷺ would actually seek out his companions. If somebody was missing, he would ask, where's so-and-so? And if he found out somebody wasn't well, he'd go and visit them. And it's really interesting because the hadith mentioned that he would seek out the weak, in particular, the weak Muslims, the vulnerable ones, the ones most in need. He'd go and speak to them, sit with them, eat in their homes, pray. And it's also mentioned one narration, he'd pray. And the reason he prayed was to bless their home for them. It's quite incredible. And then the thing is, I think that's a really big part of the way we used to interact, is visiting the sick. There's a hadith that says, on the day of judgment, God will say, I was sick, but you didn't visit me. And the person will say, well, you're the Lord of the world. How can I visit you? And he'll say, well, my servant such and such was sick, and you didn't visit him. And if you'd visited him, you would have found me with him. So by visiting the ill, the sick, or just each other, that's how we bring God into our lives. So I think it's just a matter of these things that already exist. We know what they are. It's just that we've got to all kind of make more of an effort, really, in trying to do it ourselves and also encouraging one another. There's a few more comments I think we should read. No, not at all. We're happy to hear people's comments. Monthly gatherings, faith-based. Yeah, alhamdulillah. That's excellent to hear. I think we just need more of these gatherings. We need more and more. It's good to see that, this is happening, but we need more and more of it. Every city should have that kind of space.
I think there's two elements here. There's this discussion around having more spaces, having more projects, having more mechanisms in place, and that's fine. And that has its place, and inshallah it will serve its purpose. But for every single person that's watching, really all it is a slight change in mindset. And really every single one of us, including ourselves on this panel, ought to really just flick a switch that says, okay, I need to stop being self-absorbed. I need to come out of my own bubble sometimes and start to reflect, okay, what's going on round about me? One of the greatest traits about Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was that the companions that were around about him, every single one of them felt that they were the closest to the Prophet. I mean, that's one of the skill sets that really, to this day, I find it remarkable, because I just wonder, how did the Prophet, peace be upon him, give that much time to each and every individual that they felt that they were the closest to him? Whenever you do the seerah of the companions, they talk about sitting on the street, asking X, Y, and Z person, and they would just say, no, we're busy, we're busy, we're busy. And then the Prophet would come and he would pick them up and he would take them to his house. And you have to really ask yourself, so what is it about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Reality is he cared more than anybody else. And that actually, if we all strip it back, really probably is the same for all of us. If you care enough, then you'll be willing to go about, then you operate in that way. You'll be going about in life trying to look, okay, what's going on? It's not just such single-minded or single-track minded, and you're not just living for your own four walls. All of a sudden, then you are thinking about the person that looks a bit down. You are thinking about, there's a fine line, Sheikh, when you were growing up, when I was growing up. When you seen something wrong, our elders, they pointed it out. They were the first to say, right? And I laugh, because I say there's a fine line between maybe what was the right thing to point out and what wasn't the right thing to point out. But as they used to point it out, right? They would say they would call a bucket a bucket, a spade a spade.
Yeah, and the thing is, they almost felt like
it was their own.
They almost felt like you're just like their children.
Yeah.
So the same concern they had for their own kids, they had for others. Yes. So if they saw you doing something wrong, they didn't hold back and say, listen, young man, right? I'm saying this for your own benefit, but this is not good for you, whatever. Or they would tell your father, by the way, just to let you know, your son was such and such a place. Just keep an eye on him. There was this kind of, it's not just my kids. I'm responsible for everyone's kids. So it's that same kind of mentality, that the village raises a kid. It's not just, but now it's become, no, it's just me. And then it's almost like we take offense if anyone else.
Well, you're mortally offended, right? And this is part of the problem.
But it's only to our own detriment if we have that type of attitude. There's a couple of comments here on Instagram. 11.5, and it is missing the social aspect so much. It lacks so much community spirit, I feel. And it says, I'm now trying to create social gatherings, and very few that turn up have received it so well and have opened up so much, and I see how much it is needed. So again, just reiterating that. And someone else has said, people don't want to talk about their weaknesses. It makes them feel inadequate and embarrassed due to the level of judgment people pass to another. I mean, that's another problem, of the judgmental aspect that sometimes we have. But you have to pick and choose, obviously, as well, who you open up to. That they're you have to choose. You have to be wise in who you tell what you tell. Then there's also our same kind of person saying, our convert community here are looking for spaces. Unfortunately, there is none. So inshallah, you can always contact us at Embrace. We can always see if we can help in any way. But I do think that every community needs to have that kind of space. Like my elderly neighbour has had a cupboard outside her flat, so I would check in and ask if it needs dropping to a skip yard. Elderly non-Muslim neighbour. Well, I remember one of my relatives, not my wife's relatives. He was saying that I don't know, had a neighbour who was not very friendly. I think didn't really like Muslims very much, and and then what happened was they were quite elderly, and then he just kind of started talking to them and said, I'll cut your grass for you. So, did a couple of things for that person, and that's it. Now they're like get on best chums, So sometimes it's these kind of things. You just to any opportunity, any excuse to strike up conversation, and I think it is difficult because it's almost like now everyone sits in the bus and they look at the phone.
Yeah,
everyone sits in the underground sits on the phone, right? It's almost like it feels rude now to speak to somebody because you think they're busy, or I mean, sometimes like I'm walking and the person's talking, you look and they're on their AirPods. I thought they're talking to me, but they're actually talking to someone else. Everyone's in their own wee world, and no one knows what's happening, around us. But I mean, look, we have to kind of just remind. Sometimes it's like we just forget. We have to remind each other of these things.
I think you're talking about, and I can understand why it may be difficult in those settings, right? Speaking to someone in the shops back in the day, but probably easier speaking to somebody in the shops now. But we're talking about not being, not having that any interaction, even in places where it's very easy, such as the masjid, right? Why is it that you can stand next to somebody in the mosque on a daily basis, but you don't know their name, or you might know their name, but you don't really know the second thing about them, right? So again, we keep coming back to this point of there just has to be a mentality shift, inshallah. And actually the next thing that I would say that was on my mind was a lot of the time we always say, well, when I get time, I'll do X, Y, and Z. So if I get time, then I'll go round to that person's house, or if I get time, then I'll do this, and if I get time, I'll maybe volunteer at the project. It's actually not when you get time that it's needed. It's sacrifice, right? It's sacrifice, and there's two very big difference. And the difference is if you change your mindset and it becomes important to you, then inshallah you have that intention that I know I need to fulfill the sunnah. I need to get up and I need to do it, which is very different to, wait till I've got some time, because you're never going to have the time. So I think there's a stark difference there to be made. So
there's another comment here on Instagram. I always remind my pupils at school to give back without seeking reward at least once a week. Do something for someone that creates ease for them. We feedback and talk about the impact it had. And actually, there's something that really nice I read when I was thinking about this topic. So this is somebody said he used to visit Abdullah ibn Umar. So Abdullah ibn Umar is the son of Umar, and he's a companion. So he basically sees that he notices Abdullah ibn Umar, right? He keeps going to the marketplace, right? But he never buys anything, right? So he comes to visit him and he goes, "Oh, let's go to the marketplace." He goes, "What's the point in going to the marketplace with you? You don't actually buy anything, right? You just basically you faff about, right? And you come back." And Abdullah ibn Umar says, he goes to the guy Tufel, right? The guy's name's Tufel. He goes, "We go to the marketplace so that we can greet everyone we meet." Right, so his intention was he didn't actually need anything. His intention was just to go and give salams to everyone. So you just walk about, everyone and anyone is walking about, whether they're selling something expensive or not. He's just like saying salams and chatting to everyone. You
just reminded me of what my cousin was in Turkey. He was in Istanbul, and he went to get a shoe from a shop, and he said that I went and I was haggling with the guy, and I said to him, "I'll need this slipper and whatever shoe he was trying to get." And the guy said to me, No, don't buy it from me. Go 3 stalls down and go to him. I've had plenty of business today. And subhanAllah, he said that just totally struck me, but I was just like, what on earth? But this is the one I want. He says, no, go down there. He goes, I've been busy today, but he's been quiet. And how many, that's literally the equivalent of, we're in a takeaway, you've got your own shop, and you say to somebody that walks in, me and you, we walk in, we're looking for a kebab, and the guy says, no, guys, just go across the road to him, and unbelievable. That's called checking in. That's called keeping an eye. That's called understanding, right? That was very, very profound. I couldn't.
It's very prophetic.
Mm.
Whereas, like, what's not so prophetic is if there's a busy shop and then you come along and open your shop across the road, which I'm not sure people don't do these kind of things, but that'd be very unprophetic. And it's not, and it doesn't lead to cohesion either.
Yeah,
We've got to. That example is a beautiful example that you said, that having that care and concern that, okay, something, that's my brother, and I've got to look after him just like God's looked after me. Again, and the thing is, what will happen by him doing that? It will actually make
no doubt.
him busier, because again, the hadith says, if you are in the help of your brother, God is in your help. So by helping him, by actually thinking of him and sending customers his way, God will actually increase his earnings even more.
Subhanallah. If you're tuning in, you've been listening to YouTube, iSyllabus YouTube Live with Sheikh Amr Jamil. Our discussion really today has been in regards to checking in, a prophetic and forgotten sunnah. And we've been discussing the impact of checking in and really how we can change the face of an entire society if the mindset is aligned and correct in the way in which it should be with the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A reminder for everybody that iSyllabus free taster session has its last opportunity tomorrow on Tuesday the 14th of October. Sessions start at 7:15 inshallah. Sorry, 7 p.m. to 8:15 is the first session, and then 8:15 on will be Sheikh Amr. The last opportunity to join the course is actually Monday next week, which is the 20th of October. And for anybody who might think that somebody or you're familiar with somebody that is sitting on the fence and they're ready to join, then give us a referral, inshallah, £40 for yourself, but also a discount for them as they join. So inshallah, for anybody that hasn't done the course or wants to at least get a flavour of it, then please look at the description, inshallah, where you will find it. And for any platform it is that you're using. Sheikh Amr, a very, very interesting discussion and around this concept of checking in. I'll just really invite any last and final words from yourself. Of course, alhamdulillah, there's been lots of interaction and engagement from our audience tonight, which has been great to see. We started off really setting the scene of how we were a society that really had lots of time for one another, and we're living in today's day and age where that seems to really be scarce, and we're almost living in our own bubble. So any last and final words for everyone that's listening, or maybe someone joined late, or last messages, inshallah, before we turn?
What's really interesting is it's not just the Prophet sallam that embodied this, because obviously the companions learned from the Prophet. So I'll finish this because I think it's a really beautiful story. Well, I would say that obviously Umar was a very successful Khalifa. Our leaders are spending their times in conferences and having the best of food and getting driven about the best of cars and bulletproof cars and guards and all the rest of it. In the Khalifa, one of the greatest Khalifas of all time, he was at night time, instead of sleeping, he was walking about, thinking about, listening to people. What are people talking about? How can I improve things? How can I make things better? Again, genuine concern. So one of the stories he narrates, he said that when Abu Bakr was the leader, so remember this is the leader. This is like Donald Trump, right? Or I don't want to say make those comparisons, but you know what I mean. Shabazz Sharif, that's even worse, right? Especially after him him nominating Donald Trump for the Nobel Prize again. If anyone wants a masterclass on how you polish someone's boots, go and watch that clip, which I watched earlier, unfortunately. But anyway, look at the world leaders, right? Flying about, best of everything, right? But Abu Bakr, right, with his busy schedule of the Khalifa, right? Omar used to notice that he goes missing at a certain time of the day, so he's curious, so he follows Abu Bakr, right? Abu Bakr goes into this house, right? And then after a wee while, he comes out. So what he discovers is that Abu Bakr, and amongst all his duties as the leader, still find time, right, to go and visit this blind woman, and he would basically feed her, right? So when Abu Bakr dies, Omar thinks, well, that's a really good thing. I'm going to do that as well. So Omar starts doing it, and the lady goes, she there's no conversation. It's just like, comes in, does his thing, and she says, you're not the same person as the person before. He goes, how do you know? She goes, because he used to take the seeds out for me of the dates, and you don't. And Omar goes, oh my God, Abu Bakr outstripped me again. Like, I can't compete with this guy. This guy's on another level, and these stories are amazing because these are human beings. They're human beings, and they showed, what kind of level they could get to. Even when they got to the top, the power didn't get to them, the ego didn't get to them. They were humble people, and this is why the gods, they're close to God, and they're the best of our. There will never be another Abu Bakr. There will never be another Umar because of these things. So I think that's a nice story to end on, inshallah.
Sheikh, I have to share this as well because you were talking about Umar radiallahu anhu, and we were covering his seerah recently, so I have to share this. And one time Ibn Abbas says that we were at Hajj and Sufwan ibn Umayyah put on a spread for Umar radiallahu anhu. So he made fancy food, and he had 4 men carry the tray in. And as they carried the tray in and they put it down, they stood back. And Umar radiallahu anhu said, are they not going to join us? And Safwan ibn Umayyah says to him, no, this is not for them. This is for you, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he said that he hit him so hard with his stick. He poked him really hard to the point that he fell over. And he said to him that, who are you people to give preference to yourselves over these servants? And he ordered them to sit, and he stood, and he assumed their position. So he made them sit and eat while he stood up. And subhanAllah, when you were talking about that example, I had to share that because we're talking about checking in. We're talking about being aware of others at all times. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen who's on Hajj. He's the commander of the believers. He's in charge of the entire ummah at that point. And his concern yet at that point are these 4 servants that have this big platter for me. Maybe would have just continued eating if they joined. But it was the fact that, they were made to stand at the side. So I think this concept of, subhanAllah, never letting people, never letting others feel inferior to you is also very important, being aware, and then maybe this is the last point to make sure, and you might agree with this. Sometimes we are very insensitive to what we talk about. I've been sitting in a gathering where there's someone that can't have children, and everybody knows the person can't have children. And the only thing this person's done for the whole hour that we're there is talk about their children, right? So we definitely are living in a time where we're very insensitive to what's going on around about us.
That's you're so self-absorbed. If that person knows, obviously, in that context, if they know, that's when you're so self-absorbed. All you're doing is talk. It's like anyone, you blow your own trumpet. Nobody likes it if you just keep going on about yourself all the time. So the less we kind of, and go on about ourselves, the better.
Alhamdulillah. Excellent. Well, hopefully, this is something that all of us can learn from. And for all of our viewers, hopefully, inshallah, this has been an insightful discussion this evening. And if you had just missed us, or if you weren't here at the start, and then inshallah, this will be a recorded series that you can watch on iSyllabus YouTube Live, inshallah, on demand rather. Just a last reminder before we go: tomorrow night, Tuesday the 14th of October, last opportunity of having a taster session of iSyllabus. Please feel free to click on the link below. Next Monday, inshallah, the 20th of October, will also be the last opportunity for anyone who's considering joining iSyllabus to join the course. And lastly, if you have a friend or a family member or somebody that you know that wants to join, or it might be a good opportunity for them to join, then please do refer them, because it'll be a £40 for yourself, and also inshallah they will get a discount on the course. So
somebody's asking on Instagram if it's an online course. Yes, it's an online course. That's correct.
Okay, Jazakallah for that, Sheikh. Okay, well, thank you very much, and Jazakallah khair as always, Sheikh, for taking your time, and keep us in your du'as, and inshallah until the next time, we'll hopefully speak with you soon. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.